Hi, everyone. Welcome to Temple of Geek. My name is Monica, and today we are talking to award-winning author Rektok about their new book, Spring Harvest. Welcome. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Monica. Thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Leonie Kocher. I write books under the pen name Rektok. I'm a former trial attorney turned author, screenwriter, and producer. So, I have a series out right now. They're the season series. It started with Ski Weekend, which was my debut snowy survival thriller in the mountains. Then Summer Rental, which came out last year, which was a summer fun murder mystery slasher in Florida, which is actually where I grew up. And then I just released this past spring, Spring Harvest, which is a vampire action thriller, basically pitched as Coachella meets the Vampire Diaries.
I am so excited about this. I want to talk about general inspirations and everything, but before I ask you about that, who would you say the target audience is for this book?
So, Spring Harvest is a little bit, I would say I'm getting a little bit older with my characters. So, definitely 20s, 30s, 40s, like adults that read YA or will read like a younger mindset. These aren't actually YA characters, but it's like very fast paced, very pared down prose, which I think generally you're seeing more like in the YA or the commercial space. And then I still think it's appropriate for some teens, but it definitely was not written for the teen market like my other two books. So there's like definitely some cursing, some strong cursing, which I did avoid in the first two books. There's not sex, it's not like spicy or anything. So I definitely don't think like you'd have to worry about that if you were a parent with your kids, but it definitely is a little bit more mature, a little bit more mature language, and definitely more mature circumstances.
So then what you're saying is I'm the target audience.
It's perfect for me. I would say yes. Yeah. I would say, yeah. Anyone who just wants a fun, like super thrilling, fast paced escapism read.
Nice. So I want to talk about the general inspirations. I love the premise of the book. Spring Harvest combines a music festival with a vampire siege. What sparked this unique blend of genres and settings?
I love that. Thank you. I'm so happy you enjoy it. So, it kind of, I got the seed for the idea that I really wanted to write like a action horror or an action thriller because every one of my books really explores a different like popular subgenre of horror. So Ski Weekend or thriller. I mean, I kind of use them interchangeably. That's a whole other conversation. But Ski Weekend was like a survival thriller or survival horror. And then Summer Rental was like your typical murder mystery or slasher. And I remember like I'm always trying to get people into horror, especially my husband, or like kind of spooky thrillers. And I remember we were like 2 years ago, I introduced him and a couple friends of mine to Halloween H2O, which is like the 90s Halloween entry. And I thought they were going to hate it and like make me turn it off, but they actually really loved it. And something kind of clicked in my head because that one, even more so than like other popular horror movies, it very much like the beats of that movie are very much like an action movie. It's very exciting. It's fast paced. There's like the characters are learning how to fight back. Same thing with something like Stranger Things, or a lot of people who say, oh, I hate horror, or I don't like horror, or I don't like anything scary. But like those same people love movies like Aliens and Predator. And so it just kind of occurred to me that like maybe like a fun introductory type of spooky story might be something that was a little bit more action and fun and exciting. And like the readers would be having so much fun that they wouldn't realize, oh, this is a little bit scary too. So that's the reason why I picked that subgenre. But the story itself came from somewhere completely different. So I was doing the first time I've ever done the drive between Northern California to LA, which I since now have done a lot. I was doing it with my dog. I was by myself. It was late at night. And I don't know if you have ever done this drive before, but people get surprised that there's a lot of farm town actually in California, which I think if you aren't from there or haven't visited, you wouldn't necessarily think of that because we think of like Hollywood entertainment, but it's actually a really, really huge farming state. And there's different like gaps of the drive where there's nothing but farmland. And I saw this huge sign. It was like kind of creepy late at night or whatever with my dog. And it said, Gilroy the garlic capital of the world. And I remember thinking, like, as one does if you're a thriller horror writer, like, that's crazy. Like, what is this random town doing in the middle of nowhere, growing so much garlic that it's like the garlic capital of the world? And why would you need so much garlic? And so my mind like immediately went to, of course, vampires. And I remember thinking about like everything that was happening weather-wise in California at the time. We were getting a lot of fires, a lot of like rapid heat issues, hotter than it had ever been before in California. And I immediately my mind went to, what if there's this garlic town? And the reason why they grow garlic is because they have vampires and vampire infestation. They finally get it under control. And then there's like this huge global warming incident where there's no garlic crop that year. Like, would the vampires come back? And so that was kind of like how the idea all came into place of like, I want to do this really cool like farm town. And then how do we get these characters, because all my books are like groups of friends going on trips to random places and getting into a lot of problems. It's like, how do I get these characters in to this garlic town? Like, why would they go to the garlic town? And then it just clicked with like garlic festival, music festival, spring. And I thought, oh, that would be so fun. Like, how perfect to have them going on what they think is going to be this awesome like party weekend at a Coachella, type or stagecoach type festival, and then vampires descend.
I love everything about that. I think it's so much fun. And one of the things that I was wondering, so you explained a lot about like, your inspiration for the genre and everything, but like, what were your vampire inspirations? Like, were there books or films or something kind of influenced the story a little bit?
I'm like a huge vampire junkie. I love that trope. I love those monsters. So I've kind of seen and read almost everything. I think for Spring Harvest, I was really heavily influenced by The Lost Boys. So if you read it, I think you'll like pick up. I definitely dropped some references. There's a character named, like, his nickname is Frog, which was like very much a throwback to the Frog Brothers from The Lost Boys. And even just the setting of like this kind of like small little town where weird things are happening, but no one knows why, was very reminiscent of The Lost Boys. So definitely, and also I think The Lost Boys is another perfect example of like, that is horror, but it's so much fun. And there's like all this action that you kind of forget that it's horror. And a lot of people who don't think they like horror love that movie. Definitely Buffy. I'm like biggest Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. And I loved like that idea of that really kick-ass female character that everyone underestimates and thinks is like the stupid, dumb, blonde, superficial valley girl that winds up actually being the savior of the world. I love when people are, misjudged or whatever. So I thought that was very heavily inspirational for the main character, Alex, whose last name is Summerlin. And Buffy's last name is Summers. So I hope some people will get that, but that definitely was a reference to Buffy. And then beyond that, I think lots of other things definitely influence. Like, I love Salem's Lot, and there's definitely some scenes that are very Salem's Lot-esque. Stephen King is obviously a huge, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but for anyone, I think in this space, he hugely impacts. I think just like what we grew up reading and watching and loving. So definitely references to him. Of course, The Vampire Diaries is a huge influence. One of the main characters is very similar to Damon Salvatore. I mean, I could go on and on. I feel like there's so many little nuggets just because, like I said, I love vampire lore and mythology and all the stories. And I really am a huge like consumer of them myself. So I think a lot was intentional. I'm sure there's some in there that slipped in subconsciously as well.
And I think I definitely didn't get the Alex Summerlin thing because in our last interview, when we were talking about summer rental, you mentioned that you were from Las Vegas area. And I was like, oh, is that like the Summerlin community?
That is where I live. It's funny because it also is coincidentally, I do live in Summerlin. So I think that was also part of it, but I knew I wanted to do some kind of nod to Buffy. So yeah, that's funny. It also is where I live. So it's both.
Excellent. So let's talk about Alex a little bit. She's beautiful, she's confident, and she's just trying to have a good time. Like, she just wants to hang with her friends at this music festival, and she's going through a breakup. She's ready to party, all of that. She's not looking to save the world, right? So as she's going through this transition from like ordinary young woman to the hero of this story, what do you want people to know about Alex? And what is it about her that makes her a great hero?
So it's so funny because she is probably my favorite character that I've written so far. And so many people, it's been really interesting to see, have like hated that she is so unapologetically confident and just like a little bit bitchy or whatever in the beginning of the book. And I find that really funny because she is, at least in my mind, like the epitome of a very strong woman who knows what she wants, doesn't apologize for it. Like she doesn't want to be married. She doesn't want to have kids. She pushes the guy away, even though he's a really nice guy, because like that's just not the life she wants. Like she knows, she's very confident. She knows who she is. I thought it was really funny that like I thought more women would really like that, but they didn't. I guess they didn't like that she was like kind of bitchy or just, you know, very like maybe too confident or too cocky in how she felt about herself. So I thought that was very, very interesting about her. What I think is great about her, I actually think that's the best thing about her as a hero. I think the fact that she's not like, and I've written these characters, so it's no shade to these characters, but like she's not the Bella, you know, or whatever. Like she's not this fragile, insecure girl, you know, female character that we see a lot in these type of stories that then changes into a strong person. She's always strong. For her, it's her change is actually the opposite. It's getting more in touch with like her vulnerability and her emotions, which she's really shut off because of some personal tragedy she's had in her own life. She really has issues with loving people and letting people in, except for her. She's got one best friend and her dad, and that's it. Those are the only two people she really lets in. She's a big issue with that. And I think it was really fun to write a character arc where she's the opposite of what you're expecting as a woman. Like in these type of stories, she is very, very strong. She is not the underdog, but in order to actually rise to the occasion, she has to embrace these emotions and the feelings and being able to love. And that's kind of what helps her. I won't give away like what helps her in the, you know, whatever, but like that is what really creates her arc and allows her to be able to be a formidable opponent to the vampires.
I think that speaks a lot to just like what we see in pop culture as it is. We always see like a very stereotypical person in pop culture. So the reaction of, you know, people not liking how strong and confident she is might just be being uncomfortable with something different, not knowing it because you don't see enough of that, you know? And as women, we're almost told like to, you know, wait to be saved or to be quiet or to be less than or to not take up too much room.
And like we have to like if the guy wants to marry us, of course we're going to say yes. You know, like of course we want to. And there's nothing wrong. This wasn't like I think anything a woman wants is the right thing for that woman. So I don't have a view, honestly, of like you should be a career woman, you should stay at home. I think everything should be acceptable and okay for a woman. But I agree with you. I think it's funny because this particular woman is the complete opposite of every stereotype. And even like the bitchy side of her, it's like well deserved. Like the people she's not that nice to actually turn out to be the people that didn't deserve that. Like they didn't deserve to be nice to. So she kind of has like a little thing going on as well, where I think she just has a really good radar on people and she's not going to mince words. She's not going to play nice. She's going to be exactly who she is. And for me, she was super fun to write and it is fun to read the reactions. What is really interesting is my male readers really like her. I don't seem to have a problem with her. So I don't know. I feel like that's like, if I was still in school, I feel like this would be a thesis to kind of unpack like what it is about this kind of a woman that really targets other women. But it's very interesting. But yeah, I love her. I love her. I think she's one of the coolest, funniest characters. And what I also really love about her is that in all my other stories, I haven't really explored a healthy female friendship. Like there's issues in Ski Weekend, which I won't give away, but there's definitely issues in those relationships between the girls. And then Summer Rental, the whole thing of Summer Rental is about mean, bullying, toxic friendships. And I really wanted to write in a book a good, ideal, healthy female friendship because I hadn't explored that yet. And I have those in my own life. And I loved writing the relationship between Alex and Zoe and how like they are so loving and supportive of each other throughout the entire book. Like these two women are really ride or die for one another. And that was super fun to write about Alex as well, because she's like this hard nut to crack, confident, doesn't have all the girly feelings. And yet she's got like, she's a girl's girl. Like she's got this one relationship that's the most important thing to her in her life.
And when you were writing, like crafting Alex's friends and their dynamics, was there something really important that you wanted for each of these characters? Like, this is really important for Zoe, for example, or it has to be a certain type of way.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted Zoe to be the foil of like Zoe is like she's beautiful and she's very smart, but she's like the opposite. Like she wants everyone to get along. Like she is very caring. She's very nurturing. She's like the mother of the group. So I wanted there to be that foil that like she's this wonderful, amazing person that everyone recognizes is wonderful, amazing, and she loves Alex. So like I wanted that to be super obvious. I wanted Logan to be so Logan is Alex's ex-boyfriend, although there's, you know, a little love triangle going on with them as well. I really wanted him to be like the quintessential Southern boy, like the perfect guy that you would want your daughter, you know, your friend to be with. And that like Alex just doesn't want that. I thought that was really important. And then I love like Cade's my favorite in the whole thing. And I feel like if you're going to write a vampire story, you've got to have the tall, dark, handsome, mysterious guy. Very much, I always compare him to like a Damon Salvatore or just like that kind of mysterious character. You really don't know what's going on in his head. And he was super, super important for me to write.
That is so fun. When you were developing the contrasting love interest, was there anything in particular that you wanted to, was there anything in particular about their personalities that you definitely wanted to keep very different between the two?
Yeah, I think just the idea of like they are very much like those metaphors of like the golden retriever, the very loving, very open, very sweet, you know, guy, and that's Logan, the family guy, all of that good stuff. And then the complete opposite and like the dark, mysterious, closed off guy that Alex really can't figure out and doesn't really understand. And he's not open. You don't even know if he even likes her at all throughout most of the book. I think just having those like really fun archetypes of the two different like guys that you always see in these love triangles. I mean, it's like Jacob and Edward from Twilight. Like I loved doing that because I feel like that's just a really fun trope to put in this kind of a book. And I as a reader love when I see those. It's like fun and familiar. So I think just having that explored. But as far as like their actual personalities, I think they both are really good guys deep down. So they're really not that far apart in who they actually are and the world that they want to see. They both do. I won't say do because I don't want to give it away, but they both are okay with making sacrifices, both to save the world, save the people they love. And so I think at heart, they are actually very similar people. But they've got those like really fun, like metaphorical things going on and those tropes, those archetypes going on that you don't actually know until the end.
Very cool. And my last question for you is, what are the characteristics of the vampires in Spring Harvest? Are they like traditional? Did you have your own unique taste? Like, what kind of vampires do you have?
Yes, no, I love that. That's like my favorite question, my favorite thing to talk about, because I knew being like such a connoisseur of like vampires and just reading so much and watching so much, I knew that like I wanted to do my own unique spin on it. But at the same time, I think it's so funny when some, you know, writers are like, oh, my thing's completely original. No one's ever done this before. It's like, there's no, like, that's not true. I mean, we've now been writing for hundreds of years. I feel like things you can be unique, but it's like always using like a little bit of something that's been done before and then putting your own cool twist on it. And so I didn't put so much pressure, like, oh, I have to do something that's never been done. But I wanted to do something that was like very unique. And we hadn't seen very often. And so for me, as much as I love like the fantasy vampires, like I love Twilight, I love, you know, Vampire Diaries. I think that's also fun. I knew that that wasn't what I wanted to write. My books are thrillers, very commercial, very contemporary, very much grounded in the real world. And so I knew if I was going to put vampires in one of my books in this series, they would have to be vampires you actually could believe might really exist in this world. Like not a crazy magical world, but like these are vampires that could exist and you could be on a trip with your friends to a music festival and run into them. And so for that reason, I made my vampires science-based vampires, not fantastical, supernatural. I mean, I guess they're still supernatural because they are vampires, but not like the fantastical type that we see in some of the mythology. These are very much science-based. They're actually genetic. So I played around with it. I did a lot of research on this too to make sure that it made sense scientifically, but they're very much akin to like a cancer gene or a gene for diabetes or, heart disease or whatever. These vampires have a gene that is suppressed by garlic. And so when the garlic goes away, the gene turns on, just like with cancer, whatever, smoking cigarettes can sometimes turn those genes on. So they're super realistic. Like it feels like it could happen. I think in that sense, they're actually a lot closer to zombies, like the zombies you see in like The Walking Dead or whatever. It's much more realistic. There's no magic or anything like that. The only thing is I did keep a couple of like lore references just because I thought it would be really fun to have some of those nods. So they are definitely stronger and fast. They're stronger and they're faster than like regular humans. Because I thought like, well, it's not fun if they're not, right? So like, obviously they drink blood because like, they want to kill people. So like all of that is the same as the lore. And then I did keep in running water because it was really fun to have situations where the water would, help the humans and you got to give it a little bit of advantage. Otherwise it's just too unfair. So I did keep in the running water, but has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with like the cross or anything. And obviously garlic. So I kept a couple things just for fun, but they're definitely, I think, a really unique, interesting type of vampire and definitely like a real world vampire.
Very exciting. Last year you were at San Diego Comic-Con. Will you be at San Diego Comic-Con this year?
I know. I just was asked this on my another interview too. I really wish I was going now because so many of like all you cool fun guys are going, but I decided not to go this year. I've gone like the last, I think 2 or 3 years in a row. And I just thought I needed a little bit of like a break, especially after rushing this book out too. But now I'm really regretting it because now I really want to go. But I'm definitely going to try and go to some more stuff this year. I'm not really sure what yet, but I'm working on my schedule.
Well, I can't wait to find out where you'll be. Hopefully we'll bump into each other
Hopefully
then.
we'll bump into each other. Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love to actually bump it in person.
And thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us and tell us about your book. Very excited and congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for all your support. Thanks for having me on. I really, really appreciate you.